The year, 1525. A man washes up on a beach. No food, no water, no hope. He thinks, I'll be rescued in a few days. But days become weeks, weeks become months, months become years. 8 years alone. How did he survive? This is Pedro Serrano's true story, and your English practice. Let's begin. It was the 1520s. Pedro Serrano was a Spanish sailor. His ship was crossing the Caribbean Sea when a terrible storm hit. The waves were enormous, the wind was powerful, the ship broke apart. Pedro swam and swam. He was exhausted. His arms and legs were very tired. But finally, he reached land. He collapsed on the beach. He was alive. But he was not safe. When morning came, Pedro looked around. He walked across the island. It took several hours. The island was big, but it was terrible. There were no trees, no rivers, no animals, just sand, hot sun, and ocean water everywhere. This was a desert island, and Pedro was completely alone. He felt despair, deep sadness. It was the 1520s. Ships sometimes sailed near the Caribbean islands, but this island was very small. Ships could easily miss it. Would anyone find him? Pedro didn't know, but he knew one thing. He needed food and water, or he would die. Pedro searched everywhere for food and water. He found some shellfish on the beach. He ate them raw. They tasted bad, but he was very hungry. He also found small insects. He ate those too. Then he saw something wonderful. Giant sea turtles. They came out of the ocean and walked slowly onto the beach. Pedro ran to them. He turned them onto their backs. Their legs moved in the air. They couldn't escape. Pedro had a knife. He always carried it at his waist. He cut the turtles carefully. First, he drank their blood. His mouth was so dry. The blood tasted strange, but it had water. Then he cut the meat. He put the meat in the hot sun to dry. Later, he used the large turtle shells to collect rainwater. Maybe he could survive here. Days became weeks. Pedro became very skilled. He made fishing hooks from turtle bones. He arranged the turtle shells in a special pattern to catch more rainwater. His small pile of dried turtle meat grew bigger. He had food, he had water, but he had one big problem: no fire. Fire was very important. Fire could cook meat. Fire could keep him warm at night. Fire could make smoke. And smoke could signal passing ships. But how could he make fire? In Spain, people used stones and knives to create sparks. But this island had no stones. Only sand. Pedro thought carefully. Then he had an idea. Maybe there were stones. Under the water? Pedro began diving into the ocean. He held his breath and swam down. His lungs burned. Every day he dove deeper. He searched the ocean floor. Finally, his hard work paid off. He found the right stones. He carried them back one by one. Then he tried to make fire. He hit one stone against another, again and again. He created sparks. The sparks fell onto pieces of his shirt. The cloth began to smoke, then burn. He quickly put the burning cloth onto some driftwood. Flames appeared. Pedro had fire. He was so happy. He danced on the beach. For the first time in weeks, he felt hope. Now he could cook his food. Now he could make smoke signals. He used large turtle shells to build a roof over his head. He had shelter. He had fire. He had food and water. All he had to do now was wait and hope a ship would see him. Pedro kept his fire burning every day. He added wood. He made smoke. Then one day he saw something amazing. A ship. Hills on the horizon. Pedro's heart beat fast. He threw more wood on the fire. Thick black smoke rose into the sky. He waved his arms. He shouted. But the ship didn't stop. It sailed past. Pedro felt terrible. So close. But they didn't see him. Then another ship came. Then another. But they all sailed past. Maybe the sailors saw the smoke, but maybe they were afraid. The rocks around the island were very dangerous. Ships could break on those rocks. So they didn't come close. Months became years. Year 1, Year 2, Year 3. Pedro's hope grew smaller. Every day was the same. Catch fish, collect rainwater, keep the fire burning, watch for ships. He was so lonely. He had no one to talk to, no one to share his thoughts. Was he going crazy? Sometimes he talked to himself, just to hear a human voice. 3 years alone. Then, something changed. One night, Pedro was sleeping. He didn't know it, but another ship was fighting a storm nearby. The ship hit the rocks and broke apart. Only one man survived. He swam through the dark water toward Pedro's island. When morning came, the man saw smoke. "My friends from the ship are here," he thought happily. He walked toward the smoke, but he didn't find his friends. He found Pedro. Pedro looked terrible. He had very long hair. He had a long beard. He wore no clothes. He looked like a wild animal, not a man. The sailor was frightened. At the same time, Pedro saw the stranger. Pedro was also frightened. Am I seeing things? Pedro thought. Am I going crazy? He screamed and ran away. "Come back," the sailor shouted. "I'm a Christian, like you. We share the same faith." But Pedro kept running. He was terrified. The sailor chased him across the island. Finally, Pedro stopped. He realized this was real. This man was real. He turned around, and tears fell from his eyes. He hugged the man tightly. After 3 years alone, Pedro had a friend. They sat by the fire. They told their stories. They laughed. They cried. For the first time in years, Pedro heard another human voice. It felt wonderful. In the beginning, everything was good. The two men worked together. They collected food. They gathered wood. They kept the fire burning. But after a few months, problems started. Pedro said, "You're not collecting enough firewood." The other man said, "You're not catching enough fish." They argued. They got angry. Finally, they made a decision. They would divide the island. Each man took one half. They stopped talking to each other. Months passed in silence. Pedro lived on his side. The other man lived on his side. They were alone again. Even though another person was close by, it was terrible. Then one day, Pedro realized something. Fighting was stupid. They needed each other. He walked to the other man's side. "I'm sorry," Pedro said. "Let's be friends again." The other man smiled. "I'm sorry too." They forgave each other. They lived together peacefully for 4 more years. Year 4. Year 5. Year 6. Year 7. Still, no ship came to rescue them. They began to lose hope. "Maybe we'll die here," the other man said sadly. "Maybe," Pedro agreed, but they kept trying. They kept the fire burning. They kept hoping. Then, in the 8th year, a miracle happened. One morning, they saw a ship, but this time was different. This ship came closer. The sailors saw the smoke. They sent a small boat to investigate. Pedro and his friend danced on the beach. They shouted. They waved. But when the boat arrived, the sailors were shocked. These two men looked wild. They had long hair, long beards, and strange clothes made from feathers and turtle skin. The sailors were afraid. Are they savages? Are they monsters? They started to turn back. "Wait!" Pedro shouted. "In the name of Jesus, please save us." When the sailors heard Jesus, they understood. These were Christians. These were normal men who had survived something terrible. The sailors brought them onto the ship. Pedro and his friend ate real food. They drank fresh water. They talked to people. After 8 years alone, they were finally going home. Sadly, Pedro's friend became sick and died before reaching Spain. But Pedro survived. He returned to Spain. People were amazed by his story. He became famous. He lived the rest of his life in comfort, telling his incredible survival story to anyone who would listen. Now, let's review 5 important words from Pedro's story. Number 1. Survive. Hayata kalmak. Pedro survived 8 years alone. Number 2. Exhausted. Bitkin. Chok yor gun. After swimming, he was exhausted. Number 3. Despair. Umutsuzluk. Chari sizlik. He felt deep despair. Number 4. Skill. Bessery. Yetanek. He developed survival skills. Number 5. Forgive. Afetmek. They forgave each other. And that's Pedro Serrano's amazing story. 8 years alone on a desert island. Could you survive 8 years alone? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Next Tuesday, a new survival story. even easier English. A 2-level. Thanks for watching, and keep learning. See you Tuesday.